now they can't really get this wall open because unless they retake vertical, they really have no chance of denying the bandit from above. So you see a big rotation from both the hard breaches to now push into the backside towards Wine Cellar, which is a smart idea. The bandit is no longer there. You have nothing in your way to stop the hard breach.
Still a deployable shield on Boiler as well, so this makes pushing behind a lot more difficult, especially when you compare it with the fact that the mirror window has been placed next to soft wall, so Mirror also able to contest down towards the walk-in, effectively able to hold you further back. Selma's being used to pop open the mirror window now and give that long line of sight down towards the connector, but we've got a minute left on the round, one exothermic still in pocket, which means it's very likely this main breach stays closed. They're trying to prone down blue stairs. That's not going to work. Surely you'll be exposed to the mirror window. As Homogeneous able to take down Sanjaya. That's pressure around Boiler being alleviated. Jet just patiently waiting on this back staircase. Knows it's a backstab job, but you've got the diffuser. You've got to make a move eventually. Does so. The mirror overextends. They're welcome in the basement, and you start to fall apart. Polar takes down Homogeneous as well, so you now have access in through Boiler. The last is the bandit, alone inside a connector. The plant going down in a very safe corner, with a crossfire being established now as Jimbo, yes, he's on low HP, but able to make his way in towards blue. You've got to find a way to try and isolate gunfights now in the 1 versus 3 with the case being planted down. 30 seconds effectively on the clock, but it's the first hurdle that you're going to trip up on as Polar, just tucked on the right-hand side, takes down Remix. Chaka, the round started so well for them.
Yeah.
They got a sure, they lose 2 kills early. Right, let's say that. They did lose 2 rounds early, but taking down the fuse, the double bandit trick.
They forced the rotation as well. Like, they really got themselves the kills that they kind of needed. They also successfully denied the snowmobile wall, which is very hard once the attackers establish vertical control. But like, yeah, I don't really understand that. I mean, the real reason why they lost that round most likely was because of the player in blue losing his gunfight. Once the player in blue loses his gunfight, it puts the Boiler player in a very tough position. Now you're not only really getting pinched from Snowmobile, you're also getting pinched from the main breach of Wine Cellar that's been opened up by the Selmas. And so you kind of have to make a play. You kind of have to find more kills, and once the mirror overextends and loses their lives, the Frost also has to kind of overextend, and she lost her life. It gives up a lot of site control over to Red Kites, who read the situation perfectly fine. I'll be completely honest with you. Once they realized they couldn't get the snowmobile wall open anymore, the rotate was fine, and the gunfights that they won were extremely important to their success in that round.
And they figured out, right, we lost a couple of players early on, but we did a good job of playing around this breach. Maybe we just run it back. Right, and I like this, right? I like the idea if we just send it back. A couple things to change up. Their boiler pressure was done really, really well. If they had some way, maybe put a bandit battery on that back mirror window just so that it's a little bit harder for the attack to open up that long line of sight and split the site into 2. Maybe try and close that down a little bit, but either way, once again, we're seeing this roam committed to. Again, it's one person off by themselves, and they're going to get pressured out very early. Already shots coming their way, a little bit of damage dealt. That hatch is closed as well. So yes, you've got the 2 upstairs now as they've come up main stairs to try and lend a little bit of support, but it's not a stable position.
You also have somebody pinching in from Piano, and also having a player on the Fluke balcony, and it's the Piano player who ends up making the pinch successful. Azami's in a very tricky situation. She has the opportunity to leave because there's nobody on those double doorways, and so she successfully gets the hell out of there. And now you give up the vertical control. You also give up the very first pick in this round. Red Kite successful in this round as they were in the last, and finding the opening kill and also establishing vertical control on top of that. Thus, the bandit tricking, especially with the IQ in play, is going to be made so much more difficult for pit ponies in the rest of this round. So, like last round, because they did deny the snowmobile wall from getting open, that's not going to be as possible in this round, especially with how good the vertical is here from Red Kites.
Much better job, and like you mentioned, playing to make sure this breach gets open up. No opportunity to go and trick it off, so main breach has been opened, but you still got a mirror window staring right at it, and with 2 batteries in pocket, you could now in theory trick for this. I'd expect the following breaching charges to be used pretty swiftly to remove this position, but shots coming through the floor, going to force the movement inside of sight, and that's the Azami going down, but Remix, 2 rounds in a row, the Nitro Cell strikes true.
That's at least a pick back for Pit Ponies, but you still have a lot working for you. You can see players just trying to get aggressive and see if they can find anything off of it, but they may be fighting a losing battle here. Pressure applied from both sides of the map. Sanjaya successfully pushed down Blue Hallway undetected, and then also gets the kill on top of that. So this control is confirmed, and this round may be just as well for Red Kites.
Sanjay with a wonderful shot onto Remix to alleviate that pressure inside a connector, and Polar on the back just cuts down the Frost, trying to rotate around. Again, really, really good pressure from Red Kites there in the final seconds of those rounds. Great job by Sanjay getting into that forward position down inside of Blue, and you can see the difference, right? Both times, Red Kites, last time it was Jet J, this time Sanjay able to wrap around into Blue, take down the player on elbow, and it splits that defense. It makes it a lot harder for them to try and slow down the push coming through, and now Red Kites, off the back of a one loss in round one, have put two together.
Still good rounds as well. Basement is obviously very vulnerable for Pit Ponies, and so maybe it's time to try another side. They lost it 2 times in a row. This is usually the case for most teams. No matter what level you're in, you don't go back to the same side that you that you lost 2 times in a row. So now they're going into barn games, which I actually like this decision. And like the first round, they are going to pick into the Malusi Banshees, and with how good she is, even if she has lost the ACOG, it doesn't necessarily matter because her gun is fun to use regardless. It's the Banshees now that she has 4. It's so frustrating to now push into these lurk positions such as blue stairs, which Red Kites have taken full advantage of, especially because for basement, Pit Ponies didn't really have that utility or that information available to them. Now you probably won't be as successful in doing that, and especially because Red Kites have not picked into anything such as a Brava, is going to make getting through these blue banshees so much harder.
Play for this top floor is really important when clearing for bar gaming, and I like to see things like the Flores come through. It's going to be a good way for them to get this access. Using 2 Selmas on that garage wall is an interesting decision. It's their only form of hard breach that they bring. Well, they've got the Habana as well, sorry, my apologies. But using 2, it's a heavy investment already. You want to use another one on that stock wall, so the Ace effectively dumping its entire load within the first 30 seconds of the round, just to play for this downstairs area, when you could have made it a vault or a crouch. But it does give that swifter access, I guess, is the trade-off.
Look at Castle, very risky position playing inside of a cubby, library cubby, as you Brits call it, looking towards the slant window, but Sanjaya not able to find the pick when the Castle was originally playing very aggressive, but control successfully gained over by Piano and Master Bedroom, albeit Pit Ponies aren't really heavily keying into this area. It's going to make it so much harder to like collapse onto this top floor defense now that they have this control though.
And that's Blasphemous Nick's downstairs from the basement, I believe. Castle tucked behind the table though. This might go just unchecked as you jump on up. Couple of shots going out and does land the kill, but with Azami injured, it's going to be a lot harder to find a way to get them back up, especially with 2 already now inside a cubby, a third coming in to connect with them, so storming in to try and clear the castle out of position. On the first gunfight, they're able to find it. They docked back up through the floor. Tremendous attempt to try and get Azami back into the fray, but just a little bit too late. Now a 2 versus 4 as the attacker looking to try and collapse down into bomb site. The floor being ripped apart by the Buck. Hatch is open. You can go to the gaming window to try and get into that sort of half wall if you want to go for the classic plant as well. But Nick's applying that pressure just forces Doc to move into a really uncomfortable position. The flash is coming down onto Mix Apple Sprout. They know you're behind the window. You've got to try and make a move, going towards the doorway.
What?
But it's Blasphemous next, running in instead. Just the stuns flying in deep, and I mean, if you can't see anything, it's a bit hard to win a gunfight.
Yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest though. I'm really not the biggest fan of how Pit Ponies are really holding together because they're not. The thing is that they're not really playing off of each other quite well at all. Like Castle is by himself in library, which is it makes sense. You have somebody on mezzanine, but then you have nobody on the library stairs. It makes that entry through piano, despite the keeper barrier being on a double door leading into Ivy Hall. It makes that pinch onto mezzanine so much more successful when you have nobody on the library stairs. And I like the way that, you know, Red Kites read into that situation, but to ensure that Pit Ponies don't retake into that position, they also had Sanjaya with the Buck down below, go to blue stairs to cut off any rotations that pit ponies might make to help out their teammates up top. All in all, it just wasn't really the best top 4 hold because they're not really holding for one another. They're kind of just letting red kites take a lot of space, and it's being used against them to fully pinch the roamers out and suffocate them successfully.
And it's a difficult trade-off, right? Because they've shown that they want to try and hold quite a lot of space, which does require you to have players in various portions of the map. But again, we've seen this time and time again. It was the same on their base with Rome, right? We saw first round Azami, or in round 2, I should say. Azami upstairs, by herself on the balcony. Got gunned down pretty quickly. Okay, well, we'll throw a Valkyrie in, but Valkyrie's instead going to be holding more for library than the mezzanine. You still don't have that ability to link up together because you're kind of disrupted from where the attackers are actually coming from. So at least in a similar situation, both get kind of pinched off. One does manage to make it back to site. It's been a consistent trend for the pit ponies, and something red kites, like you mentioned, have been excelling at punishing. And now, coming back again, they're just going to try and clear out this library pressure very, very early on. It's only the castle that you really have to worry about. And just bring the Ash, get rid of the mirror window. You can now walk in pretty freely because there's not that much space for the castle to actually try and contest these angles.
Yep, Noah Mai playing on top of the mezzanine to support the mirror makes it so that the Ash charges sail right on through, and already you see Polar take a bunch of space in library. Castle, for the meantime, is vacated towards the library stairs and is actually all the way down in basement, hoping to make a rotation either through library or towards West Main, and it seems that he chose his destination to go up the library stairs. And if Red Kites don't have any info on their flanks, then this may prove to be a very big issue for them, especially because he's retaking upstairs right now.
Get rid of the second mirror window as well. But here comes trouble. Can he get any work done? They have absolutely no clue. Lined up the shots onto the ace as the diffuser dropped cold. A quick re-swing from the Ash, and yes, there's pressure from inside the piano double doorway, but you don't land the kill. And Nitro Cell's flying out, but it's not able to be detonated as Sanjay lining up through the breach, through the head hole, into the head of the mirror. Back to a 3 versus 3 now, and with a quick hack coming through, those cameras going to be available to the dead members of Red Kites to try and relay as much information as possible. As Sanjay gets another kill and pushes forward into office, has control of the half wall now, and with pressure on that piano window, should be able to lay down the case pretty conveniently. You try to cross, but immediately takes some damage, and that forces an uncomfortable throw. Now the roles are flipped. The defense have to try and get aggressive if they want to retake this space. A little bit of damage done onto Doc, being trades out for the Yana. Stims himself back up to good HP, has another if they want to try and give the Bandit some sustenance as well. But with the time ticking down, it becomes a really hard proposition to try and value. Long angle now, held by Jimbo at the back, running out the window. The pre-fire's coming in from the outside staircase. A little bit of pressure on towards JetJ, but he's still quite comfortable. If they can try and hold for the Dokubi swinging round, but now that JetJ's moved in forwards as well, you can go for the pre-fire here, but the defenders win it out! There's a millisecond in it, but the pre-fire is an inch to the right! An inch to the right, Chaka. That round has no right going over to the pit ponies, but the Red Kites just overplay the patience game.
Also, the post-plant positionings weren't necessarily the best. The only player that was probably in the correct position, in my honest opinion, was the player outside of the piano window. The player playing on the library stairs can't effectively see anything, and also couldn't see the dock with the line of sight that they were holding. They couldn't see the dock rotate from Fluke all the way back into office through the doorway. So just not really in the best positions to hold anything, and like you said, playing it way too patiently, allowing pit ponies the time to retake the site and also retake the diffuser in time to defuse it too. But also, yeah, there is no also, because that was just that. It's as simple as that, really. It's kind of like I don't understand. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest, I just don't get it.
It was looking so good for them as well, right? Like, you just have to not bottle it at the end, but it's always a tall order. It's always a tall order. When it happens to the best of us, they'll have to find a way to just move on from that, but
5 seconds to go.
attack's important on Chalet, and you had an opportunity there to put yourself very comfortably at that 4-1, set you up perfectly for the second half. Does put just a little bit more pressure on them now to try and close out this round, get that lead at the halftime break when they'll come onto the defensive half of their own. We've seen Chalet be all over the place, and what an end score should look like. It's been 4-2 defense, it's gone to 4-2 attack. 3-3 is settled on a pretty comfortable middle ground, as it sort of often tends to do in Siege, you know, with it being only 6 rounds, those are obviously the more common end results. But I think Red Kites will be pushing for that 4th here, just to set them up for a little bit more comfortability, especially because at the moment, attack can be quite good.
Yep. It's always been pretty good on Chalet, but like recently, as recently as like the Esports World Cup, it's been like pretty defender-sided. This is a map now that favors defense because you have so much holes available to you. Flary takes a very aggressive swing towards the piano window, is able to collect the first kill, and that's the Ash down, but gets a little bit too overzealous. A nice little trade throw from the castle, and you at least have pit ponies holding each other off, but the castle just doesn't back off, and the ACOG blocks his line of sight. Jet moves right on in, and Red Kites are right back into the round with a 3v3, and they also seemingly have full top floor control as well because the rest of the pit ponies defenders are back on site around the first floor.
Gets rid of the mirror window from underneath inside of sight as well, so it will make it easier to try and slip down this plant. Pressure on the side now. Castle barricade still up, so it will be something to deal with. The barricade is all that prevents the peek down into what's dining, but as soon as he walks up, Spirit, watching the doorway vigilantly, takes him down. The main breach open on up now, but just a second of disconnection here for the attack. You really want that to be opened up and then start peeking in from behind, just to threaten that double angle, as Kiva's being thrown out to continue to fortify inside of sight and make life much harder for the remaining Red Kite players. Polar looking to try and get on the side, sees his army and takes him down. Pressure from Doc in the corner. The hatch might be opened as an escape avenue, but so far holding on tight, playing around the breach, and Polar's going to get a double kill for it. This is completely over. You don't need to be in these positions. He'll sneak in now. You can go for a plant on if you want to. Jet J just from behind with the cover fire takes down the mirror, and that's half time. 4-2.
Yeah, and Pit Ponies had an issue in that round like they did in a previous round. Though they did win that previous round because Red Kites were slightly more passive than you would like to see in a post-plant situation. Before the plant happened in round 6, Pit Ponies were in like really good positions. They got like really nice refrags. You had a flank coming up the yellow stairs. You also had like a player in piano who was holding strong, players in really good power positions for Pit Ponies. But then like players getting a little bit too over aggressive, Castle overstaying his welcome in the library stairs, Mira swinging out of the piano double door when the piano window was open and there's somebody in Ivy Hall. And in that round, the zombie doesn't need to be pushed up that far, especially because like the dock is in a really good position in the corner, and you have the main breach open, and the only way that the attackers can walk in is either through the main breach or they have to like melee the Kiba barrier on the dining single door. I just don't understand why the zombie's in the middle of the site, giving away her life for free, and then obviously some missed shots from Spirits gives Red Kites an opportunity to clutch out that round, because with him in the middle of the site, they couldn't just walk in. So now Red Kites, really good position now on Chalet defense, 4-2 up from their attacking split, and now it's up to Pit Ponies to gather the pieces up and try and put them back together.
Lineup still pretty standard. A Doc, again, making an appearance. It's been pretty consistent, right? And I think that's in part due to how scrappy this game's been, right? We've seen a lot of gunfights. I think we've seen at least 3 or 4 sims used in that first half alone, like actually being used, right? Which is uncommon. And I think to be fair, I think like 3 of them have gone into the dock themselves, which is again how you kind of see it get used most of the time. The extension from Red Kite so far doing a good job, but just holding the Pit Ponies at bay. There's just quite a lot of utility for them to try and burn through.
Yeah, this time you have a Wamaya play on top mezzanine, no mirror windows. Kiba barriers placed around the Ivy Hall area. First kill going in favor of the Red Kite, so the dock being ever so useful, and has an opportunity to stem themselves up. So even though you do a lot of damage as a buck, it's not going to really pay off in any sense. There's a player also down below, so even if you do get some amount of control around the second floor, around the site, you have to worry about the first floor player as well. And now that you've lost that buck, it's just like, well, what do we do from here? Pit Ponies have to try and take their gunfights and be successful in them.
Spraying out towards balconies. Ace pops up twice. Takes a hit, but not really anything substantial. Well, there we go. There's another stim perhaps being used. Calls are better. Decides that 95 HP is plenty to go off of, as another logic bomb comes through. No more for Dokkaebi to use, but it nets on the kill onto True Jimbo, and that's going to be a good start to actually now getting inside of Library, as Apple Sprout does get one quickly traded out by JetJ, who's still lurking down below. And we can see the little bit of information coming through, and Pit Ponies deciding they want to address this, because with the cameras set up inside a site, currently no cameras hacked, although again, the Azami's been dropped in a pretty comfortable position. So Jay down below immediately gunned down, but Polar from inside a site uses the open breach to make sure that they trade out yet again. We're still stuck in a 2 versus 2, but Dokkaebi's on 6 HP.
Fuser's all the way downstairs as well. It's going to be picked up from the Dokkaebi. At some point, they're actually going to just have to try and walk inside of sight and plant behind a half wall, since that's the default plant position. But they can't just walk in. You have a player in piano and a player in office, and they're just holding crossfires for one another. And out of the taking care of the Dokkaebi's teammate, it's up to the 6 HP Dokkaebi to clutch a 1v2.
15 seconds remaining.
Creeping up to the breach, looking down towards the half wall, sees the nitro cell and shoots it out the sky, but the door is closed off. You shoot it open with the SMG-12, but that's gonna give your position away. They're tucked in tight on your corner. The drop shot, it's not even a drop shot, you get the injure, but the shotgun shell to the chest takes you down at the same time. So it's ultimately not going to matter. A valiant attempt to try and take the gunfight. Still, Red Kites, they get their first round win, and they won't really care that it was a bit scrappy at the end. They'll just be very happy to have pushed it over the finish line.
It's Pit Ponies, though, to lose another round, and it's been Red Kites to just completely, like, take over this game so far. It's not been like, there's, like, no noticeable skill gap or anything. I just think that Pit Ponies just aren't really, I don't know how to even explain it for real, to be honest with you, because, like, with that attack, it just didn't really seem like there was a pointed focus. I know they wanted to focus towards mezzanine, they had a player down below, but ultimately it didn't really feel like they committed to anything. A lot of issues posed to them, especially with the player on mezzanine. You also had the player in the library hallway, and they just couldn't really get any meaningful control. And as soon as they got like good control elsewhere, you still have to walk into another crossfire in another position that you find important to you on your journey to site. And for Pit Ponies, they just couldn't really get anything meaningful going for them inside of that whole round. And Red Kites did a very good job of just getting any type of control very difficult for them. They've been very aggressive and successfully so in this whole game, and Pit Ponies have not been able to get a handle on this aggression at all.
Yeah. Spawn peek coming as well from Nyx. Jimbo also peeking out of a different window is one that gets the kill, and despite the fact that there was a player just crossing over the horizon, is going to back away. You know, you get to a sort of timer around 10 seconds, pushing 12, where you have to step out. Because you just know that there's too many angles that they could have walked around to look at this doorway. I might get gunned down. But they get that opening pick. They take down a buck, so a lot of verticality options removed from the attack. You still got both the ram and the fuse on this bomb site, and we're seeing the fuse again out on this outside balcony. Might jump in, might shoot the cluster charge down. You got a ram as well. I don't know if both are super necessary, but you know what? It gives you that option if you should, you know, lose one of your 3 tools to a spawn kill.
And even though Red Kites, the defenders that were up top here, they've left and vacated these positions, Pit Ponies are going to still take the time in order to drone all of this out and make sure that everything is clear. And they're using one of the boogie drones to set up some vertical just above the main stairs so that Red Kites don't really have an opportunity to retake. And if they try to, they're going to be worried about the vertical above them. Fuse charges as well to go off in order to establish more vertical angles up above. Red Kites might see it fit that they maybe go to plan for a retake up top, because the vertical angles may prove very difficult for them, especially in their attempt to try and keep this wall closed just outside of just the snowmobile main wall, to try and keep that closed.
Drone the drone down the back, spotting out the barbed wire, again a bit more threatening than it used to be, but Jimbo gets a second kill in the round, still running around this map, and This is what happens when you haven't gone and committed to a full clear, right? You always have these agents lurking around. You're always afraid of them wrapping around, but if the Azami and Warden still over by Kitchen, it makes looking down for this verticality a lot more dangerous because you know you don't know, but you aren't safe. They're gonna wrap around and peek on in whenever they want to, and with sprays now coming through the wall, you have to try and take some time to deal with this threat, which eats at that clock even further, and this defense continues to sit comfortably downside. Wandering towards the back staircase, still that barbed wire in play. You can go melee it in an awkward position, spots a stray walker out, as quick trade upstairs. You now have to deal with the fact that the case has been dropped on the top floor, and I think Polo's just been causing havoc from up above. They've been completely drawn away. The pistol is out for JetJ, who gets a leg shot into Flary.
15 seconds remaining.
This is insanity. The fuser has been recovered, but now you've got to run downstairs. You're met by Sanjaya on the back and gunned down. And I mean, you said it before, but the pit ponies, they just look a little bit too disjointed to be able to string around together.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to watch, to be completely honest. I mean, Red Kites have been very nice to watch with the way that they've been playing aggressively off of each other. The 2 rounds that pit ponies were able to win were really good rounds where they were able to effectively deny entry engagements or the entry game for Red Kites in a decently effective way. But yeah, it's kind of come down to, well, who's playing better as a team, and so far it's Red Kites who have been playing more together as a team. The call there to go for the flank up West Main was up West Main was really good and well played to Red Kites, because the vertical angles proved to be problematic against them, especially when they were just trying to play around sight. So it makes sense that they go for a retake. What doesn't make sense is that pit ponies don't really have any info in a retake upstairs. I think that if you do go for a heavy vertical play like that, you have the buck and a ramp. You should expect, especially once you gain that top four, you gain that top 4 advantage, you should expect there to be a flank upstairs, and that shouldn't really throw you off as much. But for some reason, they're completely surprised by it, and now they have to attack into foreign games for a match point site, which this site is actually very possible to win attacks on. It's probably one of the easier sites to attack on because you can capitalize off of the defense being aggressive because they have to be on the second floor.
Attackers are heading out to defuse a bomb.
Hey, we run it back. Again, we need to see them start putting all their focus into one spot. That's all I want to see at this point. Honestly, if they identify that library's the first step, I want to see all 5 members working towards that goal, but true Jimbo, back downstairs, runs out of garage and gets another spawn kill onto Remix. That's 2 rounds in a row, and Red Kites are at match point. That is the perfect start for them in this round. You take down Remix, who has had both his kills from Nitrocells, but has been big important kills. He's been shown that he can step up when it matters. You take him off the table, that's a threat gone. You get that opening kill. Again, fantastic. And now you still have all of this setup on the far side of the map. The drone jumping around will be shot out, but it does mean that they're aware of this extension, and Jimbo will have to be just a little bit more cautious.
Also, losing an opportunity to pinch around Solarium's side, the Oryx is going to be ever so powerful inside of offices, and the Ash dies second with the mirror window still up. That makes him so much more powerful now that the Ash is gone. And a situation for pit ponies is very dire because they've just lost so many bodies in the process, and they lose a third, yes, to True Jimbo inside of offices. You knew he was there, and you don't really take care of him before sitting back down on the fluke balcony. So now this round may just be impossible for pit ponies to come back from because they have no amount of control, and they lost some really important operators on the way.
And Spirit's only at 8 HP, so anything that glances direction, if the Vulcan gets popped, there is no way to put pressure through it as well. It's looking very, very dangerous. Still afraid of Office, and again, this is what happens when you have that indecisiveness. Do we try and pressure out the Oryx? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, Oryx is going to just continue to freely sit and gain value the entire time that you don't make a decision. Dropping downstairs now, but there's still plenty of defenders up above, so trying to brute force your way into the bomb site isn't even a recipe for success. A couple of shots into the shoulder of Nyx, you drop him to 30 HP, but you're at 8 anyway, so a spray bullet accidentally takes him down. Golu running through into library, does eventually fall, but JetJ with a mirror window to relay all the information from, gets the final kill needed for the Red Kites to get this win, to put themselves at the top of the group and secure seed number 1 going into semi-finals next week.
And the game plans for Red Kites was very successful throughout the whole entire game. Their ability to play off of each other, get the opening pick in most of the rounds that happened, almost all of them, I'm not even kidding you, was absolutely amazing to see. Their ability to play aggressive and then be successful with that aggression was also pretty entertaining, especially on a map like Chalet, where we said previously when we said it was picked that this is a map that really depends on you getting aggressive, not only as the attackers, because that's you kind of have to set the pace as the attackers no matter what map it is, but also as the defense in denying a lot of map control because a lot of it is readily available to the attackers just through the exterior windows. And I think that Red Kites were more prepared for this map because
Yeah,
they
definitely.
played just so much better off of each other than the Pit Ponies did.
Yeah, I think that was ultimately the big difference, right? Like you mentioned it during the game. On an individual level, both teams are able to shoot. It's just who's setting themselves up for the gunfights better, and every single time it was the Red Kites, without any doubt. And I think it's unfortunate because it clearly shows that the Pit Ponies have some real potential there. And I think they get a week now before their semi-finals. They are guaranteed that spot in the semi-finals still, so able to make it. I hope that next week we see them able to put that together a little bit. I think it is going slightly further back. We saw them try on their attacks to be just a little bit too tricky with it, I think, ultimately, is what it came down to, right? It was, we're bringing the fuse and the ram and the buck, and we're all going for these different ideas, and we'll all hit different spots, and we'll string the red rope together, and everything will all come together in a final crescendo. It's like, guys, just do a quick, simple clear. Let's get some
Yeah.
verticality opened. We play to the just play to the basics. I think once you got that down, you can start to be a little bit trickier with things. But you can see that the basics aren't quite all set for themselves, that fundamental, which makes doing the more complicated things a lot harder to pull off in a sort of uniform manner where it all comes together in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and also at times I thought on their defenses they were playing like slightly too aggressive, and it came at the cost of them just being by themselves most of the time. Like I referenced it in like round number, I think it was round number 5 or round number 6 when they were on second floor and they were defending Master Benjamin office, and I remember being like, well, they had a really good flank coming up the library stairs that was undetected by Red Kites, but the castle overstayed his welcome. Instead of running away and trying to waste more time,
Yeah.
Mara swinging out double door and throwing a nitro cell and then getting shut down almost immediately with the piano window open and somebody being in Ivy Hall. You think back to dining area, the zombie rotating to dining, probably thinking that the keeper barrier was going to protect her on a dining single door when it didn't really do that at all. It got destroyed pretty quickly. Her feet were exposed. She died off rip. She didn't really need to make that rotation. You had the doc in the corner who was in a pretty good spot to deny the entry from both the hallway and also from the wall. And I just didn't really see that teamwork or that
Yeah.
communication from Pit Ponies or that ability to play off of each other as well as the Red Kites did.
Yeah, and well, with that, we do know what our semi-final matchups will be. It's going to be the Pit Ponies taking on the Goats, our probably favourites, is what we sort of discussed last week. The Wolfhounds will have to play the Red Kites, which I think for them might be a little bit of an uphill battle. I think the Red Kites looked pretty on form today and have looked pretty good so far. But I think that's going to be the closer of the two, the one that you want to keep a little bit more of an eye on. Pit Ponies. It'd be interesting what they can cook up, but I think there's a lot to take away from today's game, and I think that's a positive thing, right? We saw on an individual level very capable players. The Red Kites had that edge today, and I think that'll be something that they'll look forward to trying to keep together going into next week. It is the semi-finals, but that is all we have this week. That is, and not until next Tuesday. Sorry, it is Tuesday today. So, with that said, thank you very much for joining us here today for the stream. I've been Golu. Thank you, Chaka, for joining us at Esports Wales for the Welsh Esports League season number 5. I hope you all have a fantastic evening, and we'll catch you next week for the semi-finals. And, well, you wouldn't want to miss it. You were here this week. Why not be here next week? See you then.
never